Hey guys, welcome to this week's track guide. This time we'll be showing you the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari, otherwise known as Imola, in the Cadillac GTP car. So with the circuit having gone through numerous changes through the years, the latest iteration is basically a series of kinks, but all in all it's just one big long stretch of full throttle over the start-finish straight. But it has its own sort of yeah, it has its own sort of little quirks. So obviously when coming out of the final corner, you're going to be on the right hand side. So when going down the start finish straight, you can basically make use of the whole track available, which includes this not red, but green part next to the guardrail on the pit straight right here. Just make full use of the track available. Make it one short but smooth line as good as you can, smoothing out all the kinks. And when approaching the first real braking zone for the first sector at full speed, it looks something like this. So that is one left, right, left. That is the entire left, right, left complex that is the proper first corner of the circuit. So in starting your braking, your reference point is more or less this access road, which leads out of that small little hole between the two walls, between this like concrete wall and the tire wall. So this access road right around here is where you transition from throttle to brake, and also since the road itself makes a few little kinks, it keeps just sort of changing direction in a way. So you cannot start out to the very far right edge of the circuit when braking. But what you can do is if you're sort of fixated on references as to where you need to point your car, you can use this orange marker on the tire wall right here. This is more or less what you align your car with until or as long as you're braking straight, you're more or less aiming to be on that, or like your extended line of your car should be more or less on line with this red or this orange marker on the tire wall until you reach the edge of the circuit, like right around here. And more or less when the 50 meter the 50 meter board goes out of view, that's when you start turning into the first part. And as far as the sausage curbs goes blah, 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 as far as the sausage curbs go right here, you're more or less aiming to be right up close to them, but really no need to touch them in a GTP car, or especially an LMP2 car, because the suspension of a GTP and the LMP2 by extension is quite firm, and the car relies on a very stable aerodynamic platform, and also has quite a stiff suspension more often than not. So yeah, these sausage curbs from testing, I haven't really found my way around them yet, or my way around going over them. So for now, I think uh, the best way to navigate this section right here is more or less make full use of the track available up until the edge of the sausage curbs. So really, no real incentive to go over them at any point, especially in this right-hander right here. Like you get right up close to them, obviously, to make full use of the track, but that's about it. So as soon as you start to go over them, the hit you get is quite violent, which will unsettle the front of your car and induce a lot of understeer, which will just basically ruin your whole line through the exit section right here. And when exiting the middle part, you're aiming to be more or less, yeah, about at most like 3/4 of the way to the left of the circuit available of the whole track width, in order to swing the car back over towards the right, and in order to open up this final left-hander as much as possible. Once again, get right up close to this final sausage curb right here, but don't go over it, because the hit you get is quite violent. I have to say, out of the three apexes, or the three possible hits you can get, maybe this last one is the least harmful one, but still, if you can avoid it, or if you can help it, try to avoid it. Like, you see me grazing it just about right around, or no, that's actually just a normal curb. But still, as you can imagine, the sausage curb, this final one, is also quite violent. So if you hit it like really on purpose, it's just going to send the front of your car into the air, which will take away your steering and just send you straight into the gravel. And if you're carrying too much speed, possibly into the wall as well. So when exiting this entire section right here, you can get right up close to the grass strip on the at the end of the curb. But bear in mind that this section of curbing and AstroTurf is quite forgiving in terms of off-track. So right around here is the edge of where you will get an off-track. But bear in mind that there's a grass, but that at the end of the curb, the grass becomes more or less consistent. So by the time you're at the end of the curb, you should be back on the tarmac again, so as to avoid an off-track when you're crossing the grass. So when you've done that, you realign your car with the right-hand side of the circuit, and this upcoming, I think it's called the Villeneuve chicane, at full speed looks like this. So when judging your braking for this one, I've come to the conclusion that since this is a pretty fast entry into a left-hander, which leads into a combined section of corners, you're probably better off just mainly looking at the apex as you would normally, not really fixate on any references because that just puts you off. Usually just puts you off in terms of where you're looking and how you're placing your car ultimately. So if you're going to fix a braking zone, it's probably more or less when the 100-meter board starts going out of view completely, so right around the 90 to 80 meters. That's when I start going on the brakes and turn in the car. So in terms of fixating your apex for this first left-hander of the Villeneuve chicane, you want to aim to be more or less with your left-hand part of your car. You want to be touching this, for a change, you want to be touching this sausage curb right here, because the moment you're lifting up the front left of your car with the red and white curb, it keeps lifting your car, like it sort of induces like a jumping momentum, which helps you over the actual sausage curb itself. So the hit itself, it's still pretty violent, but it doesn't unsettle the car in a way that it goes completely offline or it's like completely RNG. So this aiming for this sausage curb in this instance is quite you can get away with it quite easily, and it also helps you open up the entire braking zone for this right-hander right here. So all the time you're basically just feathering the brakes. You're not really, if you've done it right, you shouldn't really be going back on throttle between the left and the right hander. You just keep slowing down the car at all times. So you're just lifting off the brakes when going over the first curb. Then as soon as you straighten out the car, go over the brakes or go up a bit stronger over the brakes again to slow the car down even more. And then set up this final right hander right here, which you should in this instance, probably should avoid the sausage curb right here because this one is pretty aggressive. Like they're all the same, but the way you, in this instance, like when going over this one, more often than not, it just spat me into the gravel. So yeah, it's not really advisable. Again, go get as close to it as you can. Go on throttle, induce some rotation with the throttle this time. And also when exiting this final right-hander of the Villeneuve chicane, when going on this curb right here, the way or the angle you hit the curb at is pretty important as well. So you should get most of the rotation done by the time you make use of this curb right here. And also you should keep at least the right-hand wheels on the red and white part of the curb. Otherwise it'll get you an off-track point. And bring it back over towards the right as soon as you can. And this Tosa hairpin right here at full speed looks like this. So yeah, we've overstressed the rears a little bit, so the car seems a bit spongy on the rears through this hairpin right here. So as far as your reference goes, there's again a pretty handy access road coming in from the right hand side, which is more or less your braking point. Then you start slowing the car down, and you'll see also by the angle the curb has, like there's multiple angle changes. So you should aim to have a little bit of a late apex because the first part of the first 2/3 of the curb, or two thirds of the first 2/3 of the corner are a little the angle of the curb is quite open, and then it sort of narrows towards the end. So you should aim for a late apex. And right around here is where you should be closest to the curb. And also, yeah, once again with the throttle, be as smooth as you can with it because you've just gone through a pretty high load situation for the rears, so your rears are not going to be 100% when exiting this corner. And as far as the exit curb goes, pretty similar situation to the final part of the Villeneuve chicane. If you want to take use of this extra space on the outside, you should be careful that you're not going on the curb with any sort of imbalance in the car, meaning that if you're already sideways and you then use the curb, it'll only make the sideways moment worse. So if you're going to use it, make sure that you have a straight exit. You'll see me fighting the car a little bit here, so I did my best to keep it off the curb at least, so as to have as smooth or as consistent a grip surface available. When going on the curb and going on the AstroTurf, there's multiple grip changes, so you should really only use it when you should really only make use of it when the car is fully settled and it's traveling straight and it's not really sideways in any way possible. So yeah, when going up the hill, I'm not sure what this corner is called, but it's a pretty fast left-hander coming up, which at full speed looks somewhat like this. So as you'll see on the right hand side, there's a few meter markers right here. So first of all, you're going over a crest, and you shouldn't be surprised that the road sort of makes a final jinx to the right when going over the crest. So your best way, or yeah, you should obviously familiarize yourself with the track beforehand. But also your best bet is probably to take a little bit of a swing at it before going underneath that bridge on the top and align your car with the right hand side as best as you can. You will not have a lot of time to be fully aligned with the right hand side, so your best bet is to take a little bit of a swing at it, as I said, before going over the crest. So by the time you've aligned yourself with the right hand side, you will see the 50-meter board on the right. So I'll start my braking at right around, let's say this is like 65, 70 meters ish. And since it's once again a pretty short braking zone, you're turning in pretty much immediately after braking. And as far as the curb goes in this one, it is pretty surprising how much curb you can get away with. I mean, obviously, the avoiding the curb completely will give you a bit of a smoother transition and will not unsettle the car. It will be a bit safer in terms of how soon and how aggressively you can go back onto the throttle. But using the curb, I found more often than not just drags the car around that little bit more and gives me a little bit more freedom on the exit. Because when avoiding the curb, more often than not, I found myself just understeering off the road. So using the curb right here, more or less, yeah, pretty much all of it. Like you'll see my inside wheels pretty much on the inside edge of the grass, even touching a little bit of grass there. Yeah, it's just helped me rotate the car over the curb that little bit more, and then thereafter open up the throttle and make sure that you're not running too wide onto the AstroTurf, because first of all there's an off track eventually, but more importantly there's quite a big bump, or there's quite a violent transition between the curb and the AstroTurf. So if you can avoid it, or if you can at least keep the left hand side on the red and white curb, you will avoid most of that. You will avoid most of that pretty violent transition, which keeps your momentum. But also, you need to bring it back over towards the left because of this upcoming double right-hander, which I think is called Acque Minerali, which at full speed looks somewhat like this. So when lining up this upcoming double right-hander, obviously, as I've said, it helps when you exit you try to shorten this left-hand kink beforehand as much as you can, bring it over towards the left, and more or less when the 50-meter board starts going out of view, that's when you start feathering the brakes a tiny bit. And same as that Villeneuve chicane, you're not really supposed to be back on throttle when going past this first apex. You can take a little bit of liberty with a little bit of liberties with the curb on the right. As long as you're not too over exuberant on the brakes, you should be good in terms of locking up or in terms of the car having any sort of imbalance in it. And all this time you're just slowing down the car, bringing it over towards the far left-hand side. You're pretty much forced to open up the corner as much as you can. So this is a pretty tricky point, or this is a pretty pretty yeah, this is a pretty tricky corner to get right because obviously there's a lot of time when in using the maximum track available, but also it can be quite punishing when part of your car is on the grass. So you'll actually see half of my tire dipping into the grass right here. I just about kept the grip in this instance, so yeah, just feed the car towards the limit. The more laps you do, the more comfortable you get with the line, and then eventually it'll become second nature. But maybe don't immediately go for the limit here, because especially in the racing situation, this can end up quite hairy as well. So, yeah, you make use of the entirety of the curb right here, and then basically as soon as the final red break of the curb disappears, that's when you start turning in towards the corner. Once again, you have a bit of curb here available on the inside to open up the corner, but in this instance, once again, since it's an acceleration phase, there's once again quite a few pretty aggressive sausage curves waiting for you. So once again, I would advise against using them. Get as close as you can up towards them. Make use of the red and white curb at most, but don't make use of this. But don't dare to go near these sausage curbs right here, because more often than not they will just launch your car straight towards the gravel trap. So yeah, once you've passed this second apex of the double right-hander, you open up the steering as much as you can, and be mindful that you need to keep half of your, or at least the right-hand tires of your car, you need to keep them on this red and white curbing right here. The AstroTurf on the outside here is surprisingly grippy in the dry anyway, but yeah, same as the exit of the exit curb of the Villeneuve chicane. The angle at which you hit the curb, or at which you start transitioning from tarmac to grip, from tarmac to curb, affects how much momentum you can carry. This is pretty prone as to if you carry an oversteer moment onto this curb once again, it will unsettle the car even more. So be mindful that you need a straight and exit out of the second apex of the double right-hander in order to make full use of the track available on the exit here. And yeah, you'll be exiting this run up towards the chicane pretty much at the middle of the circuit. Coming up is a right-hander, so you want to bring it back over towards the left as soon as possible for the upcoming chicane, which at full speed looks somewhat like this. When you've exited Acque Minerali section, you want to bring over the car back towards the left, because the upcoming chicane starts with a right-hander, which you'll be aiming to brake between the 100 and the 50 meter board. I would say around 2/3 to maybe halfway between the two boards, which would make it the 80 to 75 meter range. You start braking, fully committed onto the brakes, and as soon as the bridge starts going out of view, that's when you start to turn it for the first apex. Be mindful that in terms of placing your car, you should more or less be, yeah, I think the limit at this point, I think they changed the limit slightly, but this was pretty aggressive in the olden days, I would say. So probably at this point, about half your car should not be, or the middle part of your car, in terms of width, speaking in terms of width, should not be over this inside edge of the sausage curb right here. So yeah, between the two, you're downshifting from third to second, somewhere around here, in order to smoothen out the entry as much as possible, or to stabilize the entry as much as possible. And yeah, at some point you start turning back over towards the left, and once again make full use of the sausage curb available. Again, your middle point of your car in terms of width should not be should not be to the left of the inside edge of the sausage curb. And this second curb transition, as well as the first one, are pretty smooth, so you can place your car pretty freely over them without really the curb knocking the car sideways or unsettling it too much. And when going over this second curb, as soon as you're basically on top of the curb, you can start feeding in some throttle again. And be mindful that your throttle input here is pretty important in terms of how much power you can get away with putting down, because the car is pretty unsettled and it's bouncing all over the place. The traction is obviously reduced, so your throttle input here on the exit should be pretty smooth. Should be firm and committed, but also pretty smooth, so as to not induce a snap of oversteer. And in terms of how far you can get towards the outside of the track available, your left-hand side wheels should still be on this red and white curbing over here. So You'll obviously make your way down to the final double left-hander, or this final hairpin leading into the final left-hander of the circuit. So at full speed, I'm gonna start it right around here because it's a pretty connected part. It looks something like this. So right around here is where you start setting up this entire braking zone. So you should be making full use of the track available. Since it's a pretty sudden right-hand kink leading into and the braking zone coming pretty soon thereafter, if you're not, if you don't really prepare the car soon enough or early enough, or yeah, as early as you need to prepare it, you risk locking up the right front a lot because when going through this kink right here, you're obviously unloading the right front, which is the tire which should be carrying the most load when going into this slow left-hander. So the way you help yourself in terms of straightening out the braking is obviously taking as big a swing from the left-hand side of the circuit into the kink itself, then come out at the right-hand side or at the far right-hand edge of the circuit, and then as soon as your car is pointing straight, that's when you start to transitioning. That's when you start to transition onto the braking, which at this point, like the 100-meter board is pretty well in view still, so I would say that's around 115, 120 meters from the corner. That's when you start inducing the brakes and should be fully committed onto the brakes by the time you pass the 100-meter board. Place the car, bring it back towards the right in order to open up the corner, but try to avoid the red and white curbing itself because it's obviously not 100% smooth, which increases the risks of locking up when you're going over it while braking. And in terms of the apex right here, you can use the inside curb quite aggressively because there's quite good grip on the inside part of the red and white curb. There's like a extra bit of tarmac on the inside of the curb. Make use of that. Rotate the car, and then smoothly feed the throttle back in, and aim to exit the corner with your left-hand side wheel still on the red and white part. And be mindful that right around the end, or pretty soon after the end of this dark patch right here, there's a bit of a bump in the road and also in the curbing. Like if you wait too long, if you delay your turn in too long, like try to open up the corner as much as possible, you'll run over this bump with your entire car. So this bump right here will briefly induce some understeer. So you should turn in right before you cross this bump right around here. So you'll see me pretty much avoid most of the bump. Like the bump starts right around here, I would say. So by the time I would be crossing the bump, my car is already committed to the turn in into the final corner. If I commit my turn in after the bump, that's when the car will start understeering, and that's when, in terms of radius, it maybe makes a bit more sense, but in terms of where the grip and the optimal line for the turning in point is, you should turn in a little bit earlier than you want to be. And this final corner right here also has a bit of grip or a bit of extra AstroTurf on the inside. Make full use of that and feed in the throttle very smoothly over this final curb right here. And one important thing to note right here, like you'll see me fighting the car obviously, exiting the corner right here because you want to get the power down. You're eager to exit the corner and save most of the lap time you've gained up until that point. Yeah, if you can, try to avoid any oversteer once again, because if you can catch it right before you get onto the curb, it's no issue. But if you carry the oversteer, like if your if your right rear touches the curb before your right front, it will lift the rear end up and then cause an even more violent jig back towards the right. So, which will in turn cause you more momentum loss, will cost you more on exit. So try to be as smooth as possible on throttle. And also when going onto this curb right here, you can short shift a little bit. Like you'll hear me in some other cars, when you're transitioning onto this curb, there's quite a few bumps in here and there, which if you try to make full use of the engine nerves available, you will more often than not run into the limiter quite a few times. So if you can help it, maybe try and short shift a little bit when going over this curb right here. Like, especially in the GTP. Like in GT3, I don't think it will affect you too much, but in the GTP, especially in the BMW, if you don't short shift from third to fourth, you will run into the limiter quite violently, even though you're nowhere near the ref range yet. But these tiny bumps, they will cause your rear or your driven wheels to lose contact with the road surface briefly, and the closer you are to the ref range, the more clipping you will have at the top end. So if you can help it, try and short shift, and you will negate most of that, even though you have a little bit less theoretical power available. But it helps you carry the momentum over this exit curb right here. And once you've committed fully onto the AstroTurf with your right hand side, you should also only get back onto the track at the very end of the curb, because if you try to get it off the curb too early, you will hit quite a few violent bumps here, which will take away a lot of momentum as well. So if you're going to commit with your right hand wheel, with your right hand wheels over the AstroTurf part, you should be making full use of the curb and this final white part as well. So after you've done that, basically all you have left to do is once again take the shortest route, take a smooth line, take as smooth a line as possible, get your upshifts right, and that is one lap of the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari. So that was one lap of the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari in the beautiful region of San Marino, or not actually I think, but who cares. I hope I could help you with a few tips here and there for your week of IMSA racing, and yeah, I'll see you guys next week.